Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I am part of the UMA team. I'm an engineer, and over the past few years, I've had the privilege of talking to many DAOs. So today, I want to talk to you about decentralizing the DAO execution process. So there are many different options when you're forming your governance flow, but this is the typical one that I see often and that I want to talk about today. The first phase is forum discussion. And during that process, anyone can come in and propose an idea to the forum. And during that time, often you'll get community members, core team members, or just anyone that has feelings about that proposal. And basically, during this process, you're ironing out all the details before it actually goes to a snapshot vote. And snapshot is that next phase, and really a platform that if anyone hasn't used, it's great. It allows you to essentially form this criteria around what the DAO wants to be a valid proposal. So they give you a lot of features like defining a minimum quorum, voting period, and also like snapshot strategies. So if you have illiquid tokens or LP tokens, you're able to actually give voting power to these members, which is unique and will be a really difficult process if you're trying to do this on-chain. So these are the first two phases, and in my opinion, are really good in terms of DAO coordination and really getting feedback from that community. However, after that, I think this is kind of where it starts to break, when you're essentially, because snapshot votes aren't binding, you are essentially relying on the multisig to carry out the rest of that process and actually execute the transactions. And I think this is where we can add a lot of improvements and make the DAO decision execution process much better. So how I propose this to be done is reduce the reliance on multisigs. Like I was kind of mentioned earlier, all this coordination efforts from people reviewing the process on forums and spending the time to vote is meaningless if the actual multisig doesn't carry out and execute that transaction. This is just one example, but like I listed a few multisig problems that we've seen, and the first one is multisig signers act against the will of their community or voters. For the most part, I think that the multisig signers and the communities are generally aligned. However, if there was a proposal to remove a multisig signer or reduce the pay of the team, it might be something that you get pushback from. Multisig signers are probably not going to be excited about signing that, and you could see delays or even a refusal to actually sign the transaction. The second one, I think, is maybe the most important and relevant. I mean, having multisig signers is a very easy target for regulators. If you go into a Discord, you could pretty much find the multisig signers on DAO. I mean, it's very easy. A lot of them have their ENS names attached to their actual wallet addresses. They're oftentimes not even trying to really hide that they're signers. So if regulators really started cracking down on DAOs, multisig signers would probably be the first and easiest place to go. And then the last problem I listed is just, signing multisig transactions can be a burden. If you talk to any multisig signer, they're probably not thrilled about the number of transactions they have to sign. And it's also like, when you talk to the signers, and I like to ask them about their process when they have to sign a transaction. And sometimes I'm met with laughter. Like, it's just a very, they get so many transactions and the review process is not what it should be. And that's a shame, because the community really depends on every single transaction to be accurate, and it only takes one malicious transaction to essentially take down a DAO. So the solution I propose to these problems is a product that Uma's been working on called oSnap, and it essentially allows your DAO to be the multisig signers. So anyone can now initiate a transaction, and while initiating that transaction, they post a bond, and anyone can then come in and dispute that transaction and post another bond. And this essentially is the game theory behind the truth is being economically incentivized. So if you feel like transactions are valid, you can essentially assert that they are valid with a bond, and they can be executed. And I think the big advance here is all of this lives in Snapshot's UI. So the transactions are transparent during voting. And so when you go into that proposal, you can actually see the transaction payloads that are being executed, which in the most current processes, it's just a black box, and you don't even know really where how the multisig processes are or how they're signing those. So just that overview, this is kind of how oSnap works. You deploy the oSnap module with the safe, you can set the parameters, and then the snapshot proposal is the same process as you're used to, except at the end, you're able to attach transaction payload to that proposal. And then if the snapshot proposal passes, those transactions can then be proposed and executed by the community and no longer have that 4 lines on multisigs. So I think it's a huge step forward, and the UMA team is going to be here throughout the week. So if you're interested, come and contact us, and we'll love to chat with you.